What if I told you that there was one company so critical that without it, the modern world would effectively collapse? Would you believe me? It sounds extreme, I know. But without this company, the modern day innovations we take for granted wouldn't exist. Like the iPhone, AI, aircraft, health equipment, vehicles, the list is endless. What all these technologies have in common is that they rely heavily on advanced microchips. And to make these advanced chips, there's only one company with machines capable of manufacturing them. We're talking about a company that builds machines so advanced, so complex, and so expensive that they almost sound fictional. Each system can cost up to $400 million, and they weigh more than a jumbo jet. Assembling one machine requires 40 freight containers of cargo, and over 200 engineers are required on site just to get it working properly. These aren't machines, they're industrial marvels. And yet, most people have never heard of the company behind all this. That company is ASML, a Dutch giant worth more than $400 billion and potentially one of the most important companies in the world.
Would it be too much to say that because these chips are in everything, that the world kind of runs on ASML?
Well, what's important to understand is that if it's only ASML, then you have nothing.
A company with technology so valuable that even nation states have gone to great lengths to try and steal their trade secrets via corporate espionage or cyber warfare, just like out of a spy movie, and as a result, becoming the center of geopolitical tension. How did a company that started in a small shed in the Netherlands become the single point for global technology? And why are the world's superpowers fighting over it? Let's find out. To understand how ASML became one of the most important companies in the world, we have to go back to surprisingly humble beginnings. ASML was founded in 1984 as a joint venture between Philips and ASM International. Their mission was simple, but ambitious, to commercialize cutting-edge semiconductor manufacturing equipment. Over the first 4 years, ASML invested heavily into research and development. But despite these investments, ASML had little progress or meaningful results to show for its efforts.
There were several times, at least 5 times, we were bankrupt, basically.
This lack of progress led ASM International to withdraw from the joint venture and sell its stake in ASML to Philips, making Philips the full owner of the company. Despite the continued support from Philips, conditions were far from glamorous. ASML operated from a small shed in Eindhoven, a very modest workshop, but would one day evolve into the birthplace of the world's most advanced semiconductor machines. In 1995, after several years of development and some commercial success, Philips decided to sell ASML and listed the company on the public stock market. At the time, one ASML share traded for $2.50, valuing the company at $800 million. Since then, ASML has gone from startup to global giant. Its revenue has surged from $700 million in 1995 to $35 billion today. All of this demand has been fueled by the world's relentless need for the most advanced microchips. But even more impressive has been the returns for stock market investors. ASML's initial IPO of $800 million has surged to more than $400 billion today, an extraordinary increase of 43,000% in just 30 years. To put that into perspective, if you'd invested $100 into ASML in the early years, your investment would now be worth over $4.3 million. All of which confirms that the global business and investor communities believe that the future outlook for ASML is exceptionally strong and that the company has even more potential still to come. But this unbelievable success has not impacted the culture at ASML. Some say that the hardship from the early years forced ASML's engineers to be resourceful, creative, and extremely collaborative, traits that still define the company today.
We never believed we were going bankrupt. The vast majority stayed at ASML because they saw that this company was different from Philips. There was a different spirit. So they really got on board, and there was an enormous team spirit.
And as a result, some engineers call ASML's machine the most complex device ever created by mankind. Let's dive in to understand why. To understand what turned ASML into the most important hardware supplier in the world, we have to explore the underlying technology. It's important to know that from a technology perspective, ASML is the only company in the world capable of producing so-called EUV lithography machines. Or simply put, these machines are the giant printers using light rays to print microchips. So in a way, No EUV machines means almost no modern world. No iPhone or data centers or advanced vehicles. All of these technologies require semiconductor chips that come from ASML machines. And in the world of semiconductor manufacturing, there are some major companies like TSMC, Samsung, Intel, the list goes on. But all of those companies use the same ASML hardware to produce their chips for their end customers, and ultimately you as an end consumer. And as a result, this is one of the most powerful monopoly positions that any company has ever held. At a basic level, lithography machines are giant, ultra-precise printers. Instead of ink, they use high-powered light rays to print billions of mini circuits. This process is what transforms raw silicon into a functional semiconductor. But EUV, which stands for extreme ultraviolet, takes this process to a level of complexity that almost defies imagination. The EUV light source is even more mind-blowing. The laser it uses is so powerful, it's like focusing the entire output of a nuclear power plant into a space smaller than a pinhead for a few nanoseconds and then 400,000 times per second. On top of that, each EUV machine has more components than a space shuttle and costs more than a modern battleship. This combination of physics, optics, engineering, and precision manufacturing has given ASML a technological lead that isn't just years ahead of other organizations, but decades ahead. No other company has replicated EUV. No other company's close. And without EUV, the entire semiconductor industry could not advance. This is why ASML is considered the most important company in the world, even though most people have never heard of their name.
The ability of ASML to service and repair its machines in China, and we can get more on that in just a moment, but it is certainly a signal that ASML and the Netherlands, of course, is facing quite significant pressure from the US administration that's really trying to curb China in this area.
ASML doesn't just sit at the center of the semiconductor industry. It sits at the center of geopolitics and within an ever-growing global power struggle. ASML's EUV machines aren't just tools for making iPhone chips or AI models. They're also critical for military purposes. Advanced semiconductors have now become widely used in defense applications, as seen in modern guided missiles, fighter jets and drones, satellite systems, cyber intelligence platforms, and an ever-growing array of military use cases. Whoever controls access to the most advanced chips has a huge advantage, not just economically, but militarily. The US is using ASML as a strategic asset in its rivalry with China. The US government has implemented strict export controls that prevent ASML from selling its most advanced EUV machines and technology to China. These controls have continued to tighten over the years, with the US government applying further trade restrictions onto the Dutch company. In 2019, under heavy pressure from the US, the Dutch government prevented ASML from exporting an EUV machine destined for China, blocking a $150 million sale. This wasn't about trade, it was about national security.
China will not accept to be cut off from technology, right? If you're 1.4 billion people, you want to advance. So this could make the choice to continue to keep China behind by saying, well, we're not going to provide them the latest and greatest product. And China, of course, is suffering from that. Their technology progress has slowed down.
In simple terms, the US doesn't just want to win the chip race, it wants to make sure that China can't even compete at the cutting edge of technology. So ASML finds itself in a strange position, a Dutch company, but effectively treated as a strategic asset of the West. In order to counter this, China has been investing heavily into research and development. But at the moment, they're still years behind in technological developments. China's biggest chip maker, SMIC, has been trying to close the gap. It hired Liang Monsong, a legendary chip engineer who played key roles in building both TSMC and Samsung. SMIC has successfully acquired previous generations and older DUV machines from ASML and has deployed aggressive production techniques in an attempt to push into more advanced chip manufacturing, but has only achieved limited scale and lower quality levels of success. At the same time, China is racing to build its own ASML. SMEE, or Shanghai Microelectronics Equipment, is developing domestic DUV machines. And even though these machines are previous generation to the cutting edge, SMEE has also filed patents for EUV-related technologies. It has also been reported that industry players have attempted to reverse engineer ASML's machines, but in the process have damaged the equipment, illustrating just how difficult this technology really is to master. Even if China built a working EUV machine tomorrow, ASML still has a huge lead. Recent quarters show billions in new orders and strong growth, especially from US, Taiwanese, and Korean customers. When you take a step back and look at the big picture, the technology, the geopolitics, the sheer engineering achievement, one thing becomes clear. ASML is not just another tech company. It is the foundation of the modern world. What makes ASML so extraordinary is that no one else can do what they do. Not the US, not China, nor any other country. Despite billions in investments and enormous political pressure, EUV isn't just a product. It's a fortress built over 40 years of physics, optics, and engineering innovation. But ASML's future will be shaped by more than technology. The company sits at the center of a global war. The United States wants to protect its military edge. China wants technological independence. Europe certainly holds a strategic asset with global influence. Semiconductor makers worldwide are desperate for more capacity, more tools, and more EUV. ASML is pulled in every direction, by economics, by geopolitics, and by the insatiable demand for computing power. Will China one day build its own ASML? Can ASML keep pushing physics to the limit and beyond? Will export controls tighten? Or will global demand for AI force new political compromises? No one knows for sure. But what we do know is this: ASML has already shaped the last decade of technological progress, and it will almost certainly shape the next one. From a small shed in the Netherlands to arguably the single most important company in the world, ASML's story is a reminder that the future is built not just by the companies you see every day, but by the ones you almost never hear about. And as the race for computing power accelerates, one thing remains true: the world can't advance without ASML.